Good morning, everybody. It's 10:15 Pacific time, and the next presentation will be done by Brent Spencer with the National Incident Management Organization. And Brent, take it away and go ahead with your own introduction, if you would, please. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm on the Portland NIMO team. I've been with NIMO since 2006. Prior to that, I was in recreation, both on the Ashley and the Bighorn Forest. Been with the Forest Service most of my career, about 38 years, and I've been involved with IMTs and teaching ICS for quite a while. Martin asked me to talk about what you could expect when interfacing with a NIMO team, what makes them different. National Incident Management Organization is a Forest Service right now organization. They're a short IMT of the command and general staff positions of 7, and then we add to our staff as the mission dictates. We're named by geographic locations: Atlanta, Boise, Phoenix, and Portland, but most of our members really don't even live in the same states as those names. I, for instance, live in Vernal, Utah, and but I'm on the Portland team. My IC lives in Grand Junction, but we kind of coordinate with those regions by those teams most of the time. Our first assignment as NIMO was in 2007 in Greensburg, Kansas, to do a tornado support for the responders there, about 300 responders. And since that time, we've been involved in all-risk situations, in special events, in wildfire. We spend a lot of time doing training for Forest Service units and other units. Been involved in national fire reviews and have went on some international assignments, both response and training. Most of our employees are virtual full-time. Unlike most IMT positions, this is their full-time job, so when we go on assignment, unlike my previous job, I didn't have to worry about if the contracts were being administered, if the personnel problems or things at home were being taken care of. This is our full-time job, so that's one reason it's easier for us to be long-term on an assignment. Why is a NIMO team ordered? The agency administrator that orders an IMT has the choice, and oftentimes they'll utilize NIMO teams when they can see it's going to be a long duration fire, or when there are multiple type 3 fires. We can aid in that training and mentoring in those situations. When there's additional support needed at the geographic area coordination centers or for the agency administrator support at either the forest or the regional level. For example, last year the team that I'm on spent over a month in the regional office in Portland helping at that level. We're often looked at as the second team in on an assignment that can stay until the final demobilization on those longer term units. We manage our rest rotation individually rather than by the team, and so we may fill in for our own position for a couple days, take R&R, come back, and the plan section chief, for example, would then take off. That continues the continuity of the team in place over a longer time. It may be just a Forest Service specific assignment One of the teams that I was on previously dealt with bark beetle strategy in Region 2 for about 2 years. Right now, all the teams are involved in providing risk management sessions across the country for the Forest Service. Or we can add capacity at the forest or regional level at the higher level activities. Some of our goals is to develop high-performing, agile, and ethical workforce, to introduce innovative concepts and approaches, science and technology that meets the fire community needs. That's one of my pet ones, is working on some of the technology stuff. Provide improved governance and decision process that allows for capable, efficient, and effective agency support and fire management, and offer a flexible and accountable incident response force. We have an emphasis on training and building capacity, which often allows more trainees to be ordered. We have the potential of doing a simulation or an exercise by a group of trainees while they're on assignment, and most of the time we really try to work closely with the GAC priority trainee list so that they can get out those folks who need an assignment to keep their qualifications or to get a qualification. How do we roster? We have an agreement that we will not use people on an existing Type 1 or Type 2 roster without the specific approval by that person's IC, assignment by assignment. Sometimes folks in the Southwest, for example, their seasons slow down when the rest of the country is picking up, and so we might be able to utilize some of those people who are on a Type 1 or a Type 2 team in the Southwest to help fill our rosters later in the year. A lot of the folks that are freelancing, they've shared their names with us, and between the NIMO teams, we share those names who are not on Type 1 or Type 2 teams, and we can utilize to place them on our initial order. If we have the time and we're ordered as a long team, for example, we will plug in those names into our initial order, and that'll be essentially a name request for those folks. After that initial order, we use normally just the standard ordering system to fill in any changes that we have in that roster or additional support. So we try not to name request after that initial order. I'll just go through a couple of the years on the assignments so you can see some different examples. For example, this was in Greensburg, Kansas, where we set up for 300 responders long term. In 2008, we spent a lot of the summer in Boise helping with NMAX support. I think all 4 teams cycled through there during that summer. In Region 2 in 2009 and 2010, the Boise team worked on a 2-year project to help that region find additional funding and help coordinate with a whole variety of different agencies that were both local, state, educational, private, that were involved in looking for solutions to the bark beetle problem. A challenging one for me, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. In 2009, we were tasked by the Vice President to track some of the jobs that were created through the stimulus money. I found when I was tasked to set up an ICP, essentially in downtown DC, for about 50 folks, I learned very quickly that it's much easier to set up for 2,000 people in Nevada than it is for 50 in downtown DC. In Texas, during that long season, I know I cycled through Texas about 6 times. All of our NIMO teams went down there, and we would pick up an additional 3 or 4 people in our plans and operations sections, add some division soups to that small group that we had, and then we were kind of pre-positioned around the state to support Texas Forest Service and the county fire departments. We would combine with a regional task force and use their regional air support, and continued around the state that whole summer. We were also tasked that year with helping with the support of the MAFS unit out at one of the older airport facilities, and help the MAFS in the DC-10 operations. The Los Conchas in 2011 in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Originally, we were ordered down there to help fast-track the bear work that was happening. When we went down, there were 4 IMTs surrounding the fire on different sides and 2 separate bear teams. The monsoons were a couple months away, and so there was a real high emphasis on how to complete that bear work even while suppression work was being accomplished. Later in that assignment, we actually kind of took, as for those 4 teams demobbed, we took control of the suppression effort and the coordination for the bear work when there was 2 different bear teams going. That was part of the challenge they had. They knew the rains were coming. A lot of bridges and roads had been damaged, and so a lot of inventory and a lot of purchasing was required to get that online. The Halstead fire in 2012, they were there for about a 6-week time frame and kept the same C&G in place for about 6 weeks. Towards the end of that assignment, they ordered a Type 2 IMT and then turned it over to that Type 2 IMT. Also in 2012, the Little Sand fire was a long duration incident in a remote location, and we utilized that one to try and use as many state and county resources that we could to keep the numbers down. We knew that it was going to be a long duration incident, and some of the unique things about that one were that we used some of the outfitter and guides who were not able to do business because of the fire was in part of their special use permit area. We picked them up as drivers and as camp labor, and it worked out extremely well to utilize their resources, as they knew the roads and the people, and were extremely handy to get things accomplished. Hurricane Sandy, 3 of the NIMO teams were ordered in 2012, along with 5 Type 2 teams to help in several of the states there that were impacted. Atlanta was assigned to help in Nassau County, New York. Phoenix was assigned to New York City at the MOB Center, and Portland was assigned to New York State in the Coordination Center. Some of the tasks that bringing crews from the west coast to the east coast to deal with road clearing.
Hold on just a second. Hey, Brent, could you hold on just a moment?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, really. Brent, did you hear that comment? They are having a hard time hearing you, even though their volume's up to full blast. So could you make sure you're closer to the mic or talking a little louder, please?
Will do. Is that
Thank
better? You. Okay, we'll try that, see if it's better. This was a picture of the logistical staging area in New York. The Druid complex in Yellowstone in 2013, there was a series of several small late season fires that were threatening park infrastructure near Fishing Bridge. This was the first time the Park Service utilized NIMO, and we had some challenges dealing with active grizzly bears and bison, both with the responders and with the public.
Hey Brent, could you kind of really speak up loud? You're a really good speaker that's soft-spoken. If you could make sure you're really loud, and then it might help a little better. Thank you.
Okay. Is that better?
So I think that's a bit better.
Okay. I'll
pretend you're talking to your deaf friend.
Okay. As you can see, we had buffalo that were right inside the ICP, so that was a challenge for us when we had active grizzly bears that were impacting traffic and all those kind of things inside the park, just adjacent to the ICP. Region 5 and Region 6 support last year. The Portland NIMO team was combined with a Washington Type 2 team on the Carlton complex. The Atlanta team was assigned with a Southwest Type 2 team on Bald Sisters, and the Phoenix team was assigned in Region 5 in North Ops. So for the first part of the season, the team that I'm on was on the Carlton complex, and then we went into the regional office and helped them for another month. This allowed the folks at the regional office to be able to manage their rest and recuperation, like RIC, for example, substituted for the regional fire director when he took some time off, or if they had to be in 2 places at once. Our operations section chief did many of the duties of the duty officer, so we just kind of filled in for that staff and did some strategic planning for the regional office and the state office of the BLM. At that time, we began the development at the request of the regional fire director for an executive level simulation of what could happen at a PL5 plus situation, and we held that for the regional foresters, the state director, state foresters from Oregon and Washington in February, and had a really good simulation of what can happen when things look like they're going to look like they're looking for this coming season. What works well? Oftentimes, if we combine with a Type 2 team, we can provide the organization and functional depth with a team where the existing relationships are already working well. It requires that they're open to try this and to leverage their skills and abilities with the skills and abilities on the NIMO team and adapt quickly to that change of conditions. We have tried a combination with Type 3 teams in the past that may lack the experience or functional depth, and this has worked well when we find teams that want to try this. We found some things that don't seem to work very well, and the first one is being the first team on a Type 1 incident, because we lack that depth in our roster, so it's hard for us to get there within that 24 to 48 hour time frame and be effective. Oftentimes it's hard being combined with a Type 1 team where they're already at full staff. If there are unclear or unspoken expectations from the ordering agency administrator. If we don't know what those are, sometimes it causes a problem. The other time it causes problems is when nationally we're at a PL5 and everybody's getting unable to fill on resources, and so it limits our ability to fill any of the folks that we need to fill out a roster. We'll continue to help where we need to at the Forest Service level, special projects and special support, and we've provided a lot of extended details into vacant positions within the Forest Service or at NIFC where it was needed in the past, and we'll continue to do that. We've also been assigned international assignments, and here's a picture when part of the Boise team went down to Australia in 2007. You notice those fancy bibs. We had to get used to wearing those. That'll conclude the portion that I had about interacting with NIMO teams. If you have other questions, just, my contact information will be at the very end, and we can discuss those. I've been involved in trying to find the best satellite services that I could in the last several years. I've seen a variety of vendors. I had them come and demonstrate. And I think that we finally found some ideas that match what we need on IMTs. Both Region 6 and Region 1 have been actively looking at that. The other thing that's going to happen as I keep my ear to the ground, that there will be some possible changes on how satellite services are going to be obtained in the future. Right now we have an option in some of those coffee service trailer packages to get satellite service. That really wasn't designed to provide internet service for the whole incident. Essentially they were designed for the copy service trailer and the needs that they had. Because of that, there's been rates that have been all over the board, and some of them haven't been able to provide the whole service that they that the incident required. So next month there'll be some decisions on whether or not to keep that option in the copy service trailer package. In the past year, several regions and states have purchased satellite systems and data packages and have been testing in. Region 1, Tyler Hackney up in Missoula, and in Region 6, Mike Gaskin and Dale Gunther, who is Dale just retired recently. In Region 6, purchased systems. I purchased one under the provider of Viasat. Washington State has got 3 of them that I know, and they're fairly inexpensive, under $3,000 essentially. They're very easy to set up, just like your dish TV antenna, and seem to not take a lot of maintenance once they're set up and aimed correctly. The data packages that are associated with these that are purchased essentially are turned on when the incident happens, and you can turn them off whenever you want, and billed through the buying team on either a monthly or shorter term if needed. But when you purchase them, you really don't need to buy the monthly data package, which has been a stopper for me in the past on the expense on that monthly data package that many of them require. We've been working with one new provider in Region 6 that has an option for EERA and is looking to expand. That company's name is Cloudcaster, and They have the ability for voice over IP radio, voice over IP phones, cell coverage for a limited number of phones in a spike camp situation for Verizon, Sprint, or AT&T for like 10 to 15 phones in a spike camp. And they have an extended range wireless voice over IP radio that could reach a supply or a nearby Helibase operation, which is intriguing. And last year, that company and California Team 4 tried to test up on the Klamath National Forest, and they documented it as the Marlink 4 mission. As you can see in that, the Pelican boxes, the long box is essentially the tripod for the dish, and the smaller boxes are for phones and the router, essentially. They had to pack it in, they couldn't fly it in. It was about 300 pounds, and they put it on mules and packed it in. This is what it looks like when it's set up. Voice over IP phone, the Verizon cell phone service, the Wi-Fi, a printer, all run off of a small generator. It's just a picture of their disk and a remote setup, but they're able to do either full ICP or remote setups. Picture of their router and a voice over IP phone connected remote location. This is where they were able to connect to their base camp, to a helispot. It was quite a ways above the base camp, and they were able to set that up about 15 minutes after they arrived on site. And you see that attached telephone on that Pelican box. So wherever they set those up, there's a phone that's attached. This is looking the other direction, up to the helipad. These are what the boxes look like for the cell phone signal application. You can order it or not use it. Here's the Marlink. And created with the intent to provide internet and cell activity at Summit Spike Camp, located on the Marble Mountain Wilderness National Forest, for about 50 firefighters. Tied in with the Helitack and the same benefits, which were internet, Wi-Fi, and be able to provide maps and IP components. It accomplished all of the proposed goals that they had. They were also able to support finance by submission of crew time reports. They were able to support plans by providing updated IAPs and maps, mobile solutions. They supported logistics with accurate supply requests and current commo plans, supported operations with mission objectives, fire line changes, and other line assignments. Michael Hoos authored a document that I'll show you some links to about this test. So here's Michael's contact information, and if you want me to send it to you, you can just send me an email, and I'll be happy to send you a link also. If you want to visit cloudcasters.com, and click on the firefighter package link. There's a 40-second video there kind of showing the same thing. Some other contacts, Tyler Hackney in Region 1, and Mike Gaskin, computer specialist at the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center. Both have been involved with the Viasat stuff, are very knowledgeable resources if you're thinking about doing a purchase. There's some briefing papers available for the systems that were done by the Wildland Mobile Technology Working Group. In 213 of essentially the dish that you saw in my slides, and then in 2012 I did some lessons learned report of the ones that are attached to a mobile vehicle that are essentially self-aiming dishes. Cost quite a bit more, but you can do some more stuff with it. This is my contact information if you have questions on any of the satellite stuff or anything else. Just flip me an email and or give me a call. I'm open for questions now.
Josh, do you see any written questions for Brent? We probably can give him a couple minutes before we get into Gina. And thanks for your patience, Gina. Stand by. You'll be going pretty soon. But do you see any written questions out there, Josh?
Yeah, there's one from Michael Dunn, and he says, what's the difference between NIMO and Area Command? Seems redundant.
There's quite a bit of difference between NIMO and Area Command. Martin gave a good presentation yesterday on what Area Command did when they're coordinating between multiple fires, multiple complexes, multiple IMTs. NIMO really is designed to be a essentially an IMT. They can help in support of either the region or a forest like Area Command can, but our functions are quite different. You got anything to add to that, Martin?
Probably the other thing I would chime in on is Area Command itself is more strategic in nature, and sometimes it's a bit of a gray area because I think there's occasional times when they use NIMO instead of Area Command because NIMO is a standing organization. I mean, they're standing paid employees out there to do a job. So sometimes, perhaps, when some of the things that NIMO does might kind of get into the Area Command realm, but one of the biggest differences, like Brent was talking about the size of the team, they have the operational component and the finance section as well as part of the NIMO team, and that's not something that you're going to see in an Area Command organization.
Okay.
There is a comment about the previous presentation. I'm not sure if you want to do that one now or if hold off.
Yeah, that was the one